Hi, welcome to Graham's networking lessons. Today I'm going to do a focus episode on a specific topic on the JNCIE-SP. This topic is going to be VPNs. You can see my folder here with all the subtopics. It's going to be the inter-AS VPN subtopic. And then within that, it's going to be the inter-provider topic. So I have just recently, before starting this video, finished the example configuring inter-provider layer 3 VPN option A. So for this video, I'm going to be going through and verifying those configurations. And if there's any errors, I'm going to try to troubleshoot and resolve them. But hopefully this will be a short video just showing you the things I have done. So it looks like we're going to need to open up router PE1 right here. Kind of slow to open up. All right, so we've got PE1. So the command, we're going to be displaying the routes for the routing instance. We're going to verify that 192.0.2.1 is learned from OSPF. So we're going to do show OSPF route instance VPN to CE1. And it looks like we actually do not have that learned. So hopefully, well, the video's already gone off the rails, but this will be a good troubleshooting video. So we can see in the example, these are the networks I was expected to have as well. And those were expected to be learned over the same link, the same interface. So this 000, so let's do a show in description. And let's see what device that points to. Okay, so that points up to the CE router. So let's take a look at that CE router and try to figure out, even though it's configuring, it's receiving this one from the CE router, let's try to figure out why it's not receiving this other one. And already I kind of have a clue here with this /32, which is typically a subnet mask used for a loopback. For any beginners here who are not used to kind of seeing that, that's something you can see. It just means that that's one specific IP that's assigned. You don't have to assign a block. You don't have to have like a /24 or something that has multiple addresses. You can say that this device just has a /32. It's the only device in that network, and just like you can get that specific. Another thing that's good for beginners to know that you'll see out in the real world, you could also have /31s. And you might think, oh, well, how can I use a /31? All I've got is a network address and broadcast address. I don't have any host addresses. You have to assign a host address in order to have IP protocol work. Well, there's actually a RFC out. So RFC, let's see here, /31 subnet. So it's RFC 3021. You can look up on your own, and you can actually use a broadcast network and a network address. You can use both of those addresses as if they were host addresses. You might have a few issues. It's not compatible with every single gear, but this is definitely something you're going to see out in the real world. And if you're a new network engineer, you might say, oh, who's the idiot who configured the subnet mask wrong? And if you tell that to your principal engineer, he might think you're an idiot. So it's just something to be aware of. So, yep, let's open up the CE and let's see who, or let's check that loopback first, because that's probably where the issue is. So I always like to do display set Yep, so you can see I don't even have a loopback configured at all. So let's go back up to the configuration for this CE1 in the example here, and let's see, perhaps it was missing. If it was missing from there, let's go ahead and download it and keep track of that. If it wasn't missing, let's just add it in. Mistakes happen all the time. It's really not a big deal. So yep, it looks like it was included in the example, so let's go ahead and add that in. Configure private, set interfaces, LO0, unit 0, family internet address 192.0.1/32. Well, oh, another good thing to know is for beginner to Juniper, you'll often see this match for or save or something when you're in the more prompt, which just means when you have to hit enter or space to show more output. Sometimes you'll hit the wrong thing, or it'll happen in the middle of your typing and you'll hit a word, or you'll hit a letter that triggers something like this. So all you need to do to get out of this, hit Control-C, and you'll see that abort there, and then you've got to hit an additional enter. So a lot of times what people do when they use Junipers is they just don't know how to get out of there, so they just start mashing the keyboard, and you can end up with little files. Kind of, I don't have any because I've figured out how to kind of break that habit, but you'll see little nonsense files with like nothing in there, and that's from people doing a command like show, or just show you and then being in this more prompt, and then you can actually do different things. Like here's the reverse bug, but long story short, just not knowing how to get out of that more prompt. So once you're in that more prompt, you can actually hit H, as I did here, and you can see that you have a help menu for the more prompts. So let's see here. Here's a common one people will hit. They'll be in the middle of typing, so they'll hit like C or they'll hit E. You can see just about every letter on your keyboard is a trigger waiting for you to get confused and stuck in that more prompt. So the important ones for you to know is just Q, because that'll take you out of the more prompt. And then if you accidentally hit a different one like S, just that Control-C and enter. And that's going to make it a lot better to work with. And if you're working on a team and your whole team knows to do that, you won't get those little files like, oh, what is this Q file just sitting here, you know? And that can be a little bit destructive and annoying if your whole team is doing that and creating those little files. But let's take a look at the candidate configuration. So that looks good. So let's move it into the active configuration through a commit. Perfect. So now let's go back to those verification commands. And let's see if we've got that route on PE1 now. So a shortcut I can do to get down there, which is really nice about these here, is I can actually click here and get to the example where it starts. And now I can go down to the configuration, and I can go down to this section here, verifying the VPN operation. So I can hop back and forth between the relevant sections really fast that way and not get lost. So let's keep going on this. So, and unfortunately when you resize it, it kind of changes where you were, but it's just like a page up or down, so you can find it really fast. So let's give this another try here. I'll just use my buffer to go up through it. Don't really need to type it out again. And I don't have it there. So let's do one thing to also mention is relying on your buffer and stuff is great in production, especially since you don't do any typos that way. But in the lab, if you do that too much, you might just forget what the command is. Like if you're constantly typing the command out character for character without using autocomplete with the tabs and stuff, you're going to get really sick of typing it really fast, and you're going to really like remember what you're doing. Like it's, the more you type out commands verbose from memory, in my opinion, the easier it is to understand. So those shortcut tools are essential. Use them in production, but in the lab, especially if you're learning, studying for a test, and you really need to know what those commands are, especially verification show commands, I really would recommend, at least for more than you would kind of think or want, typing them out in full and only using those shortcuts if you really are under a time crunch or you really have fully memorized the command and understand and can close your eyes and type it out without using any kind of shortcut. So that's just a recommendation from me. So let's continue looking into this issue and see why it is not being learned on that other side. So you can see here it's meant to be a it's meant to be an OSPF route. So let's see that the OSPF neighborship is up. So show OSPF neighbor, and the CE is only going to have one OSPF neighbor. Oh, and yep, we can see OSPF isn't even enabled on the CE. So let's go back and take a look at the rest of that configuration and see what's on there, what isn't on there, and hopefully we can get this section completed. If this video goes on too long, I'll split it up into multiple sections. Let's see if I can figure out how long it's been running so far. I cannot. That would be a useful feature. But anyways, let's get that route learned and let's get this neighborship up here. So CE1 right there. We've got configuration for that. So let's take a look here. Show configuration, display set, and more. Yep, and we can see all of this configuration is missing. So it's nothing, no problem with that. Just add it in. If protocols, OSPF area 0.0.0.2. Yeah, this can happen a lot because it's just such a big topology. There's so much to enter. Like a lot of the times you finished configuring 6 routers and it was a pain in the ass and you just forgot one. So that's why those verification steps are there. So I'm gonna very clearly, this here is what they are using in their topology here, but of course I have a different topology that I'm using, so I'm not going to use the exact same interfaces. But luckily I know what type of this interface this is. This is the interface connecting to the PE router, so I can just do show in descriptions and I can see, yeah, that's the only one I've got. So I'm going to be adding that into OSPF. So set interface 00. And you can see there I auto-completed interface because I know what the interface command does. So, but if you're a beginner, you haven't used interface command much, type it out until typing it out makes something inside of you hurt. So display set. So yep, and you can see I didn't even have to include the .0, it just automatically includes it because that's the only one I can add in there. So this will be good. Yep, and that's all that's left for there. So let's go back to our run and run that command again. Let's check on C1 because there might be another neighbor on here. Yeah, so you can see this is the neighbor on the other side. So it's not saying that the neighborship to C1 is up. Oh, yes it is. Okay, well, so here's another kind of tip and trick. So I wasn't sure which interface this was, but I have descriptions on all my interfaces. So I can see, oh yeah, sure enough, this is the one to PE1, which is interesting. I mean, it could be mislabeled though, because I'm just surprised that there is a neighborship over this interface. So yeah, I'm really surprised there's a neighborship over that interface. So what I'm going to do is match GE dash, and I'm going to do so I can see what subnet this is. This is 198.51.100.0/24. So I'll see if there's another link, a port on here that has an address in that subnet. So yep, I can see 000 has a host address in that same subnet. So I would be expecting to see okay. So what's going on is this is a special kind of topology that's often used in service providers. It's called a inter-provider layer 3 VPN. So I can show you the configuration routing instances. So I've got a special routing instance here. So the reason I don't see a BGP neighbor here, but I see one here, is because this is everything in here. When I say show OSPF neighbor, I'm talking about the default routing instance. But here I have a custom routing instance, so I've got to specify that like that, like so, and it'll even let me auto-complete it out. And that's how I can see that there's a neighbor. So yep, it's in state full. It looks good here. Let's go back to that command given in the verification steps. So let's go down here to verifying VPN operation. Another really good thing to know is I can just use the back button to get back to where it was, use the forward button, go back down there. That's a really great way to efficiently move through the documentation. So looks like I very likely mistyped the instance name. I don't see what my typo is now, but let's take a look at, oh, okay. So this is meant to be run on the PE. I ran it on the CE, which of course, if we look at the configuration, does not have a routing instance. This is all just in the default route table. So you can see INET 0 is the default route table, but if I go into PE1, yes, I've got INET 0, but I've also got this special custom route table VPN to CE. So I can queue to get out of this more prompt, and it's a more prompt, so I can always do type no more and just not see that and have it all come out. But now if I do show OSPF route and now specify that custom instance VPN to C1, now we've got that in there. So that's the first issue that is resolved. It'd be nice if I could see how long this was running, see if I could end it right here. But it looks like there's no way to do that. So what if I dock it to the bottom? Do I get more information? No. What if I do something else? What if I click on this? No. Okay, well, I can't tell how long the video was running, so why don't I just stop it here, because I think this was a really valuable thing for especially people who are new to networking to see, just kind of that troubleshooting process and getting something up. And let me be clear that this is, of course, out of band, so you would not, if you didn't have a OSPF neighbor established to a device like this, you would not be able to get management traffic over. Well, you could do certain things. You could set up a static route on it. you could, yeah, you'd be directly connected to it. So you'd have to, it's not going to be quite this simple. This is perhaps a more simplified example of troubleshooting, but I think it's a valuable video, and I'll end it here, and I'll see you in the next one.